everyone's trying to change the outside world. Everyone's trying to make the world of effect better. But as all of the great mystics of history knew, including Marcus Aurelius, including the biblical mystics, including the Islamic mystics, is that in order to change the effect, you have to go into the causal realm, the realm of cause, which is the inner. And on this channel, we've talked a lot about interiorism, which is that the inner can change the outer. But the truth is even more profound than that. The truth is non-dual, which means the inner is the outer. The inner and the outer are the same. And all of the great wisdom teachings of history have taught us this. And in the next few videos, I want to get us really in touch with our wisdom traditions. And there's no book better to kick that off than the Gospel of Thomas. The Gospel of Thomas is unique in that it was attributed to Thomas, who was one of the disciples of Christ, but it was not rediscovered by the Western world until the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the 1940s in Naj Hammadi, where a shepherd boy came across this clay vase, and this vase had tablets that were thousands of years old, and they belonged to a sect of people. I think it was the Essenes, which it's been attributed or it's been passed down that Jesus was actually a part of that sect. The beauty of this book is that it is a part and parcel of our Western tradition. It's part and parcel also of the Eastern tradition. It crosses traditions. And if you read even in books by Sayyid Hussein Nasr, who is a scholar of Islam, a scholar of Shia Islam, he says that in talking about Allama Tabatabai was one of the great exegetes in the Shia Islamic tradition. And he would sit with Henri Corbin or Henry Corbin, who was a French scholar of metaphysics. And of course, he studied the Islamic Sufi metaphysics. He studied Christian metaphysics. And Sayyid Hussein Nasr said that they would both study from the Gospel of Thomas as well as from the Gospel of John, meaning that these traditions, while being the patrimony of Christianity in the West, are shared by all traditions just because the message is so universal. The reason why it's universal, as Fridtjof Schuon said, one of the great authors in the perennialist movement, he said that metaphysical tradition, while syncretism is a mistake, meaning that people trying to put all of the religions and traditions together and then trying to invent something new or saying that they're the same, these are not correct. But when you get into the metaphysics of every religion, a certain syncretism is unavoidable, which means that basically the metaphysics of every religion are the same because they point to the same thing. They point to the same truth. And the Gospel of Thomas brings this home to us in a very powerful way. And I think that today there's so much fear in the world. There is so much attachment to worldly things. There's so much confusion that I think it behooves us to sit back, to tap back into the roots of our Western tradition and to contemplate some of these verses, whether it be from the Bible, whether it be from the Quran, whether it be from the Gospel of Thomas, which is really profound. Another very special thing about the Gospel of Thomas is that it was hidden for centuries. Again, it was basically lost and rediscovered in the 20th century. So there are no traditional commentaries that we know of on the Gospel of Thomas. There are no, rampant translations that date back centuries so that people could change it. So basically what you see with the Gospel of Thomas is what you get. So I want to really just reflect on some of the verses of the Gospel of Thomas. I have read a commentary, but of course there's a modern commentary. I want to tell you basically what my contemplations are on it. I'll give you some of the commentary and we'll just reflect upon these, because I think reflecting upon these verses It's going to be very powerful moving forward in a changing world, in a world that can seem scary at times. We have to remain rooted in the mystical tradition. And I see no better way of doing that than contemplating these great traditional books. And it will go into the way we live our lives. It's basically will give us an instruction manual for living our lives and for indeed attaining everything that we wish to attain as humans. So, verse 3 of the Gospel of Thomas, it says, Yeshua said. So these are basically not stories about Yeshua's life. They're not doctrinal pronouncements. They're basically sayings of Yeshua, of Jesus, and they're all about the inner life. As Neville Goddard and the other mystics said, all of the scriptures are just written by you. Keep that in mind when we read these verses. Even when it's talking about different people, I'm going to read a verse that talks about masters and then children and non-masters. These are not different people. These are all states within yourself. When you understand that, you'll be better able to glean the meaning out of these very cryptic verses. And they're like koans in the Zen tradition. They are statements that will make you think. They're not just going to deliver to you a punch of banal meaning. Rather, they're going to make you contemplate. And in that contemplation, you're going to be able to extract the best meaning for you in your circumstances. So it will speak to you forever. It's not like ChatGPT where it gives you an answer and, oh, that answer could be wrong and it just applies to one person. These are aphorisms. These are statements that will apply to people in all times and all places because the inner is always the same. So in order to get that soil ready to actually receive these teachings and to contemplate them, I think it behooves us to bring ourselves into a prayerful state, into a meditative state. And we can do that by just becoming completely present. Just focus on your breathing in and out. Don't change anything about it. Just focus on it. I really want us to get the inner soil ready to receive these words and to contemplate these words. And to make these seeds grow into fruits that will actually have an effect upon your life. So if you're ready now, we're going to go into verse 3 here. Yeshua said, Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, if those who guide you say, look, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds are closer than you. If they say, look, it is in the sea, then the fish already know it. So, if someone says, look, the kingdom is in the sky, then it's already separate from you. You understand? So, already we're setting up this duality. If they say it's in the sea, the fish already know it. So, again, it's separate from you. The kingdom is inside you and it is outside you. It's very interesting because if you look at A Course in Miracles, I believe one of the verses in that book is when Jesus said in the canonical Gospels, the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said within is an unnecessary, or she said, the author of that book, inspired, The Course in Miracles said, within you is an unnecessary addition. So the kingdom of heaven, if you really want to go deep, we talk about going within, we talk about the interior, but even that on a certain level is separation. So the kingdom is inside you and it is outside you. So there's no within and no without. It is everything. When you know yourself, then you will be known. By whom? By the one. And it's very interesting in this vein that a hadith or a saying of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Islamic tradition is, من عرف نفسه عرف ربه. Whoever knows himself knows his Lord. So knowing the Lord is knowing yourself because there's no separation. So this witness consciousness, this presence, what we call in today's world mindfulness, that is the quickest way to knowing the Lord, to knowing the oneness, and to knowing everything. Just that non-judgmental presence that we practiced at the beginning of this reading. And we don't need to, in these videos, edit them to fill in the spaces. The spaces are an integral part of the video because it's complete presence. It's not necessarily the words that I'm speaking, it's what's between the words that we focus on. So when you know yourself, then you will be known. And you will know that you are the child of the living Father. And what does that mean? Because many commentators, of course, in some traditions we say the slave of the Lord, but this slavery is more like a loving servant. But in the Christian tradition, we say we are not slaves, we are sons, which means we inherit everything that the Father has. And even he says, remember, now this is Jesus speaking. It's a great point that just came to me in this contemplation. He says, you will know that you are a child of the living Father. Now, Jesus is described as the Son of God in the Bible. And God said to Jesus, the Father said, Son, all that I have is thine. So if you are a child, that applies to you as well. So if you're the child of the Father, you are the inheritor, and all that he has is yours, is thine. But if you do not know yourself, you will live in vain, and you will be vanity. And look at the people of this world now. Just look at how this world is devolving and unwinding so quickly because people are in a hurry. They do not take time to stop and contemplate. They do not know themselves. And how can you know yourself unless you contemplate? This is a very important point because we're all in such a hurry. Even people in the manifestation movement and people in the reality creation sphere are in such a hurry to get what they think they want. But again, as we know, in the advanced stages of this, it's not about what you have or what you get. It's about who you are, who you become. But in order to become something, you must know yourself. And the only way to know yourself is to observe yourself and to contemplate. That takes a little bit of time. You have to take time away from the rush. You have to take time away from the news. You have to take time away from X. You have to take time away from going out and just working to try to earn more and more money in survival mode. And you have to actually sit down and reflect and contemplate. Contemplation, unfortunately, is a lost art in our society and our cultures. Has not been emphasized much, unfortunately, in our culture. That's why in the West we have developed so massively. We have developed so impressively, technologically, and yet within we are pygmies. We are inner midgets. Because we spend no time in contemplation. So that's just a note from this verse. And he said, if you do not know yourself, then you will live in vain and you will be vanity, meaning you'll be seeking after vanity, just the dross of this earth, just the junk of this earth. What the Islamic tradition calls ad-dunya, hayat ad-dunya, this lower world. When it's beautiful to create, but once you create, to become attached to material, to become attached to matter, you then become a slave of that, and you're no longer living in sonship. We can only do that by knowing ourselves. I think this is a very important verse. Here's a very powerful one. Yeshua said, recognize what is in front of you, and what is hidden from you will be revealed. There is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. Recognize what is in front of you. So again, in our modern world, we're in a rush for everything. When we're on the highway driving, we're in a rush to get home. When we're at home, we're in a rush to get ready to go to work. When we're cooking, we're in a rush to have dinner. When we have dinner, we're in a rush to finish that. So what is in front of us is simply used as a stepping stone to get somewhere, but we're not recognizing. And I wish I recalled what this word was in Greek. We're not recognizing, we're not putting our full attention on what is in front of us now. And if you recognize and put your full attention on what is in front of you now, then he says, what is hidden will be revealed. You will start getting the true riches. The true riches are that the universe reveals to you its secrets. God reveals to you the secrets of the universe. Not only what is the cause and effect, what is behind it, what is behind matter, what matter is, what the purpose of this life is, what the purpose of your life is, indeed, how to get what you want. All that will be revealed to you if you would simply put all of your attention in the present moment, in what is in front of you, instead of worrying about what is not at hand. And boy, do we all do that. And he says there's nothing hidden that will not be revealed. It's all a matter of time. It will all be revealed. This is another beautiful one. If you go to verse 6. His disciples questioned him, the disciples of Jesus. Should we fast? How should we pray? How should we give alms? What rules of diet should we follow? Everyone's always seeking a law and a rule. And you see this a lot, by the way, in the manifestation community. Oh, how should I affirm? How should I, do sats? How should I visualize? What should I visualize? You're trying to make a law when, in one of the great letters, James, I believe it was, said, follow the law of liberty. Look to the perfect law, the law of liberty. For the man who is centered within, there is no law. So Yeshua said, stop lying. Do not do that which is against your love. And my understanding and contemplation of this is, don't try to do something that you don't want to do in order to earn favor, or in order to earn what you want, or in order to try to earn your place with God, or to try to earn your place with people. Don't do that which is against your love, and stop lying. Stop trying to be something that you're not. You are naked before heaven, Jesus said. What you hide will be revealed. Whatever is veiled will be unveiled. So if you're trying to fast, if you're trying to visualize, if you're trying to get something, even worse than that, when we go back to Vadim Zeland in Reality Transurfing, he talks about the fact that a lot of what people desire is not your desire. You desire it so that others may see you, so that others may think that you are great. And in the Islamic tradition, this is called ar-riya, and is a major sin. In the Christian tradition, Jesus says, do not go out and pray in the streets, but rather go and pray in your closet. Do not show off as the Pharisees before men. Because why? No one's going to be convinced by that anyway. The only thing that is going to be truly congruent with who you are is what arises naturally out of your unique path. So it says, whatever is veiled will be unveiled. I think we're just going to read one more, because these contemplations, they need to be done deeply. We don't need to just cover ground. I want you to turn these verses around in your mind, around in your heart, and see what interpretations they give you. See what unique knowings are revealed to you that you can own. That's going to change your life. This is very heavy, and it goes in accord with what I've known before. So I want to read this to you and tell you what my interpretation is, how this speaks to me. The disciples said to Yeshua, "We know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us then?" Now, what does Yeshua mean? If you go back to the mystical works, if you go back to Neville Goddard, Jesus Christ is equivalent with your own human imagination. It's what Henri Corbin calls the vita imaginalis, or the imaginative life, the imaginative realm. And it's not only picture imagination, it's what you emanate within. It's what comes to you from within. Of course, the without is the within, but it's what comes to you that is not necessarily confined to matter. It's like Plato's soul realm as well. It's the realm of imagination. Jesus Christ is your own imagination. So think of this verse from that aspect. He says, "We know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us then?" And to me, it's like this. We imagine something that we desire in our lives, whether that be wealth, whether that be security, home, and we're happy with that. That's the first stage of manifestation, because you imagine it and you believe it while you're imagining it. But then you open your eyes. And of course, there is a time buffer between the imagination, between the declaring, and the manifestation, of course. That's 101. So the world will usually tell you something that you have not imagined, or the opposite of it, to say, "Hey, are you sure you want this?" That's an interpretation of it. So when you open your eyes, you will come back to the old world. It will be like a shock, as Neville said, and that is like Jesus leaving us. He said, "Who will be great among us then when you leave us?" When the imaginal scene leaves us and we go back to quote-unquote reality, which is not reality, it's past, it's dead. Yeshua told them, when you find yourselves at that point, go to James the Just. All that concerns heaven and earth are his domain. Now, James the Just was the brother of Jesus. But I want to show you what Neville said. Of course, The Power of Imagination. It's a great book. It's most of, if not all of, Neville Goddard's books. And I want to just go over with you what he said about James the Just. In his book, Your Faith is Your Fortune, which I could never recommend this book too much, he talks about all the disciples being mental qualities. And this makes perfect sense. And he says, the next two who are called are also related. These are the brothers of James and John. The brothers James and John. James the Just, the righteous judge, which Jesus mentions here in the Gospel of Thomas. And his brother John the Beloved. So they're paired, they're together. Justice, to be wise, Neville says, must be administered with love, ever turning the other cheek, and at all times returning good for evil, love for hate, non-violence for violence. The disciple James, the just, the brother of Jesus, symbol of a disciplined judgment, must, when raised to the high office of a supreme judge, be blindfolded, that he may not be influenced by the flesh, nor judge after appearance. Remember, these teachings are passed down by mystics. This is not just Neville making this up. Disciplined judgment is administered by the one who's not influenced by appearances. The one who has called these brothers to discipleship continues faithful to his command to hear only that which he has been commanded to hear, namely the good. The man who has this quality of mind is incapable of hearing or accepting as true anything, either of himself or another, which does not, on the hearing, fill his heart with love. So what does that mean? When you imagine your desire, then when you go back to the world, that's as if Jesus is leaving you, your imagination in this case. You return to James the Just. Now he is your leader. And what does James the Just do? You see something that's contrary to your desire? you do not accept that into your mind. Rather, you close your eyes to it and you return back to what you've already agreed upon within that is yours. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that incredible? And I believe when Neville wrote his book, Your Faith is Your Fortune, the Gospel of Thomas was not yet widely available or widely read. So it's incredible. So these verses of the Gospel of Thomas are great food for contemplation. We will continue talking about other verses of this book as well as other books. We'll contemplate together, and I think we can change the world by doing that. So until very soon, it's Javier with the Real Javier Novoa wishing you a wonderful night.